Hello everyone, and welcome to a new video. In this video, we're going to continue talking about the syntax, the basic syntax of PHP. We're going to cover mainly three topics. The first one is operators. The second one is the selection structures, or how do you make a PHP to make a decision. And then after that, we're going to talk about how do I make PHP repeat something. For the purpose of demonstration, I'm going to be using Notepad in my personal computer here. And when it comes to testing, I'm going to go to my server and try to get tested here on this server. Now, I already have some website or web pages available here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a new one. Let's go ahead and do that. Sudo touch. And I'll just call it testing.php. So now if I go here, you'll see that there should be a file called testing.php. Here it is. Let me just change the permission so I can read and write to it. Or you know what, let's just go sudo nano testing.php. Now you can see here it's empty. I am not pretty sure if I can save anything, but for the purpose here, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to copy this from my computer, and I'm going to try to post it here. And here it is. As you can see here, it's not really doing it the way I want it to be done. So we need to actually modify a little bit. So here's the HTML section. Here's the PHP part. It looks like there's an issue with the spacing here, so let's just put it this way. And it looks like this is acceptable. Now, for the purpose of demonstration, I'm just going to come here and echo. I hate those white green things. Okay, here we go. Echo test. And I'm going to follow that by a dot, double quotation, \n, single quotation. Semicolon. So Control X, save it, and clear. Now if I type cat testing, here's my file. Now if I want to test this, remember here it's called testing.php. So what I can do here, if I go to this website, let's just go ahead and log in here. It's going to take me to this page. If I just come here and put \testing.php, it will take me to that page, and here it is, test. Okay, so let's go back here. I'm going to be playing in this area for quite a time, so let's go ahead and I'm supposed to go to the nano, not cat. Okay, let's take this testing part away. And let's see, what are we going to be talking about today? As I said, we're going to talk about operators. And we have a long list of types of operators. And I'm just going to go back to here. We have arithmetic operators, we have string operators, we have assignment operators, we have comparison operators, we have logical operators, and we have bitwise operators. We're going to see what are they and how do they work, and we'll see some examples as well to see how can we use them. So one by one, let's go ahead and start with the arithmetic operators. Now for the arithmetic operators, let me just put a comment here. We do have a list of operations that we can apply in PHP. So we have addition, subtraction, we have multiplication. Remember, we're going to be processing data, so in a lot of cases, we are going to use those arithmetic operations. So we got those 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 basic operations. Now, we already know what's the job of most of those. This will add two numbers, this will subtract numbers, this here will multiply numbers, this will divide numbers. This here will find the remainder of a division, and this will be this. You can use this double asterisk to find the power of a number. For example, 2 to the power of 3 is basically means 2 multiplied by 2 multiplied by 2 3 times. That's 2 to the power of 3. So if you want to actually express that, it's going to be 2 asterisk asterisk 3 to get that done. We're going to demonstrate again each one of those and how do we use them. Of course, you can immediately, just like this. Let me just go and show you an example of that. If I go back here and just type echo, and I can come here and say 3 multiplied by 5 and put semicolon, or I can put a dot here, follow that with break line, or go to the next line. Now let me just Control X, save it. Let me go back here, refresh the page. Oops, I didn't save it actually. Let me just save it. Now let's refresh the page. Oops, he didn't like that for some reason. I think I know why. Maybe because of this part. Let's go ahead and take that new line away. Control X, save it. Now let me refresh the page, and you can see here now I got 15. Okay, so this is, again, you can put numbers, you can see the results. Let's see what if I try the division. Well, before we do that, let's go ahead and echo and go to the next line, backslash BR, put semicolon, and now let's echo 5 divided by 3, semicolon, Control X, Y, and now let me refresh the page. Now I'm dividing 5 by 3, so let's go ahead and refresh the page, and here it is. Now I hope you guys noticed that division here, we don't, the rules that we have with programming, like when you divide integer by integer, doesn't apply here. So you have to put that under consideration, which basically going to make your job a lot easier. You don't have to worry about, the results of the divisions, all the kind of details. You don't have to worry about that, because one of the things here that you should know, that the data type for variables in PHP can change easily, which basically we cannot get the same thing done in other programming languages. So for the purpose of demonstration, what I'm going to be doing, I am going to come back here, and I'm going to just give you some examples of how do we perform these arithmetic operations. So I'm just going to go take all these out. Oops. How did I end up like that? Okay. Oh, here's the body. That's what I was. For some reason, this is not. No, I don't want you to save it. Let's go back here. Let's take that out. Okay, so I'm going to create 2 variables for the 3 variables. Okay, let's go ahead and do that. The first one, I'm going to call it num1. And I'm going to assign num1 to 10. And then I'm going to create another variable. Notice that the name of the variable, I started with a $sign. Num2, let's put here 7. And now let's create a new num. Let's call it num3, and let's leave num3 without anything. Now what we can do, we could come here and say num3 equal num1 plus num2. And then after that I can echo $num3. Let's put semicolon here. After that, I can follow that. I'm just wondering why is he not accepting the decimal point. Decimal point only work with strings. Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Echo. Let's go ahead and put a break line here. BR. I'll put semicolon. Okay, so let's just go ahead and save this. Y, go enter. And remember here we got 10, we have 7, so the result I'm supposed to see 17, and here it is. Let's go back here and change the addition to be multiplication. Now we understand multiplication, division. Let's do the modulo operator. So 10 module 7, I'm supposed to get the remainder of that division to be 3. So let's go Control X, Y. I saved it, so let's go ahead and put it, and here you can see it's 3. Let's go back here. Let's try the power one. So if I go, let's nano that, go down. Oh, this number is going to be way too big. So if I go 10 to the power of 7, not really big. Control X, Y, enter. Let's save that. And here it is. You got 7 zeros here. And those are the basic arithmetic operations. Again, they're simple, they're easy. You can use them directly, you can use them with variables, and that's basically how it works. What will be next? Let's see. The second list of operations I'm going to be talking about is the assignment operator. Now, for the assignment operator, we already saw some assignment operators. For example, this here is an assignment operator. This is assignment operator. This part is an assignment operator where I'm actually performing some operations here, and the results will be assigned to S3. Now, what we do have a list of other assignment operators, and I'm going to be discussing them in this area here. We have the regular assignment, we have the plus equal assignment, we have subtraction equal assignment, and you can see here where I'm going. Multiplication equal, division equal, module equal. Now just remember here, we don't have the power equal thing. Okay, so let's see what do we mean by equal assignment. Well, imagine you have a variable, let's call it num1 equal 10, and let's say you have another variable num2 equal 5. When you type, well, num1 plus equal num2, this again basically means, and I'm pretty sure most of you guys already came from some background of programming, this is basically equivalent to saying num1 equal num1 plus num2. So what do we mean by that? Basically we mean, this operation, what it does is it's going to take the value of num1, add num2 to it, and the results is going to be used to update the original value of num1. So if we take this part here, this is equivalent to this operation. We're saying here is if num1 is equal 10, num2 equal 5, this statement here means add num1 to num2, so you're going to end up having 15, and then the result, which is 15, is going to be assigned to num1. So the original value of 10 is going to be basically replaced by the new value, which is 15. Now this basically will be applied to all these other operations. Now let's go ahead and demonstrate that. I'm just going to go with multiplication, for example, here, so we don't have to try them all out and have a really long video. So let me go ahead and do that. If I come here, I'm going to keep the num3, but for num2, I'm just going to come here and say num2 plus equal. Well, you know, I need to keep it as it is. Let me take this away. Now, num3, I'll keep it num3 as it is. I'm just going to come here and say num1 minus equal num2. Semicolon. So what am I doing here? I'm subtracting 7, which is num2, from num1, which is 10, so I'm going to get 3. So by the time I'm done with this statement here, num1 is not going to be 10 anymore, it's going to be 3. And as a result, this is going to be 3 to the power of 7, which basically I have no idea how much is that, but we can go ahead always and give that a try. And here it is, that's the number, 2187. And this is what we mean by assignment operators. Okay, so we covered the assignment operators. We covered the arithmetic operators. Let's see, what do we go next? The string operators, well, we have one string operator that we covered before, and it's really simple, and I'm going to talk about it right now. We already saw some examples, but we're going to go and give that a try again. And then after that, I'm going to go and continue with some arithmetic operators that I forgot to mention. So let me go back to the string operators in this area. Let's use this area for example. If I come here and say word1 equal, I'll just say word A, with semicolon. Now you can see here when you create a variable and you want to assign it to a string, you have to surround that string with double quotations. I can come here and say word2 equal, let's put word dash B, and let's put semicolon here. If I want to put them together, I can come here and say word3 equal, look at this, word1 dot, I'll put a space here, dot word2, and put semicolon here. And then after that, I can echo $word3. This is basically what we mean by the dot operator. Dot operator basically is going to put words together. That's one way. So let me just copy this. Let's see if I can actually paste it without having any troubles in this area here. So I'm going to come all the way to the bottom. I'm going to use this area here. Let's give it a tap. Control V. Oh, kind of worked. Kind of worked. So let's go ahead and go enter. Give it a tap. Another enter. And then here we go, echo 3. Word 3. So let's go Control X, save it, press enter. Let's go back here and here it is, word 1, word 2. So you can see here we were able to do that. Now there's another operation. Let me just go back to my notepad just to put the main two string operators. We have the dot and we have the dot equal. Dot equal basically work the same way those operations work. So for example, I could come here and put word2 dot equal space word2 space word B. Now I can take this part away and replace this one with word2. What am I doing here? I'm taking word2 as it is. Oh, sorry. Let me take this one away. I made a mistake. Let me just go back and reverse the order. Let's keep word 2 as it is. I'm going to take this one away. I'm going to do the following. And let me put a space here just for the purpose of testing. If I come here and say word2 dot equal $, word 1, I'm basically taking word 2 as it is, which is word, well, I'm supposed to put word 1 here, sorry. This is 2. So I'm going to take word 1, and I'm going to add word 2 to it. So I'm just going to come here and put this as 2. I'm supposed to get the same results, by the way. This is equivalent to what I had before, just adding 2 words together. Now let me just go back to this part and try to update it so I'll get the same results. So I'm going to come here, just put a space here. And for this section here, I'm going to take the whole thing away. Just put 1 here, dot equal $, word 2, semicolon. And of course I have to come here and change that to be word 1. And let's Control X that, Y it, and let's go back here and give that a try. Oh, yeah, word, oh, wait a minute, word A, word B. What did I have before? Well, this one makes more sense. What did I have before? Word A, word B. I think those were printed for some reason. I think I have to go back and check the video later, but this worked perfectly fine. Okay, so this is the string operators. Now, before we continue, there is a group of operations that we can use as well. It's also some sort of arithmetic, and those operations are. Let me just go back here and put it here. We have the plus plus and the minus minus. Now, those two operations basically means when you have a variable, you're going to increase it by 1 or you're going to decrease it by 1. Now, the location of the plus plus or the minus minus plays a major role on the total performance. And let me just show you an example about what do I mean by that. If I go back to my page here, and let's go and nano this. I'm going to use this area here and this area. So if I come here and say $, let me just use the num1 and num2 that I have up there so I don't have to create new ones. But what I can do here, I'm going to create a num4. Look what I'm going to do. Now remember here, whatever you're going to apply for the plus plus is going to be very similar to the minus minus. But let me just put it this way. If I put plus plus $num1, this is supposed to be $. And let me just come here and let me add this echo, add this and here. So I can break line, go to the next line, put semicolon here. Now if I come at this end here and just type echo $num4, what's going to happen at this statement here that I'm going to highlight? Since the plus is before num1, that basically means you're going to have to increase num1 by 1 and then assign the results to num4. Now remember here, num1 was updated to be positive 3 here because of the subtraction operator here. So num1 at this point equal 3. What I'm going to do, I'm going to increase it by 1, so you get 4. So num4 is going to equal 4. Okay, so let me save that. And let's go here and refresh the page, and you can see here I got 4. Now let me go back. And change the location of this plus plus. If I come here and put it at the end, okay, plus plus at the end. If you put a plus plus after your variable, that basically means use the original value of num1 and assign it to num4, and then after that you increase num1 by 1. So basically what's going to happen here, the original value for num1 is 3. 3 is going to be assigned to 4. And then after that, num1 is going to be increased by 1. So when you come here and show me num4 is going to be 3, but actually num1 is going to be 4. So either way, num4 is going to be updated, num1 is going to be updated to be increased by 1 or decreased by 1 depending on what the operation you're using. But what's the effect of having plus plus before or after will basically be reflecting on what you're trying to do with num1. So if you put plus plus before num1, that basically means you update num1 and then use it. If you put it after, it means use num1 as it is and then update it later. So let me just go ahead and save my work here. And after that, if I go back here, you'll see that this 4 is going to be actually 3. And here it is. It's 3. So those are the 3. This is family 1 operators, this is family 2 operators, this is family 3 operators, and this is the family 4 operators. After that, we have the comparison operators. Now, comparison operators is very important to understand, and we have a list of operations when it comes to comparison, and we're going to talk about them all, of course. So let's start with the first one. We have the double equal, we have the triple equal. Now that's something different. We have not equal, we have this sign here, which is different than everything you know from programming languages. We have this sign also, which is different than any other thing you know. This one is traditional greater than, this is traditional less than, this is traditional greater than equal, this is traditional less than or equal, and this is something new. Okay, so if you have any background in programming, this and this and this, and this, and this, and this, they're not new. Those are not new operators. But we have this is new, this is new, this is new, and this is new. Now, before we get to that point, let's just talk about what are comparison operators. Comparison operators basically means you can use them to compare two variables. And the comparison usually is going to return true or false, depending on the statement that you have. So let me just show you one statement so you'll understand what I'm talking about. For example, I can come here and say 10 double equal 10. This is called statement or expression. This expression is what we call a Boolean expression. A Boolean expression basically means after the compiler is going to, or the computer is going to evaluate this expression, is going to end up giving you a result of true or false. In this case, I'm asking if 10 does actually equal 10, and since 10 equals 10, then that's true. We usually don't use it to compare values directly. We use them to compare variables, and that's what we're going to be seeing. So let's talk about one by one, and then I'll give you some examples. What does equal equal means? Equal equal basically means when you have two operands or two variables to the left or the right, if they both have the same value, that basically means is true. Let me just show you what do I mean by that. Let's just go here, for example, and put num1 equal 10 and num2 equal 10. I can come here and say num1, the dollar sign always, don't forget, double equal dollar sign num2. Now since num1 equal 10 and num2 equal 10, so the final result of this comparison is basically going to be true. Now if I could put back this to be 5, that basically means it's going to be false. Okay? Now if I come here and replace this with this operation, which is the third one that I have here, that basically means I'm asking if num1 doesn't equal num2, which basically it is true, so it's going to return a true in this case. Of course, we have the greater than, so I'm asking if num1 is greater than num2, which is true in this case. I can come here and say if num1 is less than num2, which is false in this case. I can come here and say num1 is greater or equal to num2, and num1 is less or equal num2. So those are the basics that we know already, but we have three new variables. Large comparison operation. This one and this one, actually 4 of them, and this one and this one. So what do we mean by those operations? Now, those could be new to most of you guys. Now let's start with the triple equal operators. This basically will return true if you have two variables from the same data type. Again, remember, I'm not trying to figure out if two variables are basically the same. I'm trying to find out if two variables, I'm trying to check here if two variables are coming from the same data type. Let me just put it this way. I can come here and type the following. $, num1, triple equal, $, num2. Now, even though we know that num1 equal 10 and num2 equal 5, but both of them belong to the same data type, which is an integer. So as a final result, this here will be true because they're exactly the same. Now let me just put it this way. What if I come here and put, let me just fix something. I'm just going to come here and put double quotation between 5. Now since 5 is surrounded by question marks, that basically means 5, okay, number 2 here is not a numerical value anymore. It's a string. It's a character string. So that basically means this is going to be false. Because num1 and num2, even though I know they're not the same, but we're not checking if they have the same values. We're checking if they have the same data type. And that's what we mean by double equal. That's very, very important. Before you start comparison any operations, you have to make sure that they belong to the same data type. Now, of course, as the opposite of that, we have the one with not equal the same data type. And this one also is going to return true if variables are not equal. Let me just go back here. I forgot to mention something here, which is very, very important. Let me just go back here to the first example. Not only that this operation is going to check if both of them are the same data type, it's also going to check if they equal the same. So this is you checking for if they are equal and they belong to the same data type. Now you may ask, well, how do I have two variables that are equal from this different data types? Well, if you put them this way. See, you can see here now 10 and 10, even though they're exactly the same values here. This is 10 and this is 10, but this 10 is not a 10 numerical value. This is 10 a string. So that's what you're trying to do here. This is very, very important. That's not only checking for equal, it's checking if they are actually the same data type and they are equal. So with that being said, let's go and move on to the not equal. If that's the case, what you're going to do, you are going to check for two things. The first one, when I was checking with the triple equal, they have to be the same data type, again, and they have to equal. So the only case for this operation to be true is to have it num equal 10 and num equal 2. 10 equal 2. If you change the data type, that's going to be false. If you change the value, that's going to be false. Okay? So you have two conditions you're checking, the values and the data type. Now let's go ahead and move on to not equal. This one here is going to check for one of two cases. Remember, the first one, both cases has to be true, data type and the value. Here one, you have two options. This will return true if they're not equal. Okay? And also, it will return true if they're not the same data type. And it will return true, of course, if both of them, they're not equal and they're not data type. So this is, again, something you really, really have to pay attention to, because we're going to use this a lot, this operation and this operation, to check the data types of our variables and see if they're compatible with each other or not. So put that under your consideration. Now, with that being said, let's go ahead and check and see what is this operation and what is this operation. Well, for this one here, what we're doing here, this is going to return true if the variable that you have is not equal y. Now, this here is very, very similar to this one. So basically, this is not equal and this is not equal. So you have two options. Okay? This one basically will check if the two values that you have are not equal, and you can also use this one. Let me see here. Yep, that's exactly what it is. If they're not equal. So if you have two variables here, not equal and not equal. Now, I think there is a difference between them. I'm going to try to figure that out later. But for now, we're taking here for not equal, this for not equal. Now, what is this one then? This one basically will return an integer less than or equal to or greater than 0, depending on if one of the variable is less than the other, equal or greater than the other. And this operation actually is a new one. It's introduced in the latest version of PHP. So I'll provide you with examples about this part, and this part to try to understand what's the main difference between those two and how does this one works. Okay, so technically there is no difference between those two operations. They exactly work the same way. You're just basically comparing two values and trying to figure out if they are not equal. So if they're not equal, it's going to return true. If they're equal, it's going to return false. Now this one here is called the Spaceship Operator. Now the Spaceship Operator works in a really, really different way. So let me just demonstrate how does it work in an example. So if I come here and type $num1, and I'll put that Spaceship Operator $num2, what's going to happen here is this expression is not going to return true or false. It's basically going to return one out of three values. It's going to return 1 or 0 or -1. Now, if both values are exactly the same, it's going to return 0. If the value num1 was greater than num2, it's going to return positive 1. If the value num2 was greater than num1, it's going to return negative 1. And that's basically what it works. So basically, you're comparing between three values, but instead of returning true and false, you can return 0, positive 1, negative 1. And that basically can give you a better idea about the relationship between those numbers. And instead of checking which one of them is bigger than the other, you can go ahead and use the equal or the not equal, okay, or the less than or the greater than. What's going to happen here, basically, if they're equal, return 0. If num1 is greater, is going to return 1. If num2 is greater, is going to return negative 1. In this case, for example, since num1 is greater than num2, though, it's going to return positive 1. If I put 15 for num2, it's going to return negative 1. And if I put 15, 15, I'm going to return a 0. So those are the comparison operators. And let me just refresh your information about them. This will compare two values if they are equal. This one is going to compare two values if they are equal and they are from the same data type. Now this one, not equal is basically going to compare if two values are not equal or they are from the different data type. So it's going to return true for either one of them or both of those cases. Now this is not equal to values. This is not equal to values. This is greater than. This is less than. This is greater than or equal. This is less than or equal. And this one here is the spaceship operator, where you're trying to figure out if the relation between two values. What I'm going to do, I'm going to go to my PHP file, and let's go ahead and try. I'm going to have to go through cd var HTML. Remember, here we have a new file called testing PHP. So is he going to let me? Yep, here it is. Not login. We're talking about testing. And here's my file. Now let's go down to the bottom here. And before we do that, let me just come here and put an echo break line here. BR, semicolon. So I am going to start by comparing num1 and num2 using the spaceship operator. So I could come here and say echo, and I'm going to come here and type $num1 $num2, and let's put semicolon here, and let me follow that with another echo for the break line. And let's see, I hope the spacing is not going to be an issue here. So let me just go ahead and Control X, save it. Now I'm out. Let's go ahead and run this, and here it is, -1. Let's see, why is that -1? Because we know num1 is equal 4. Again, remember, we subtracted here, we added, and num2 is equaling 7. Let's try to put num3. If I come here and replace num1 with num3, I'm pretty sure num3 is greater than num2. Control X, save it. And now, if I refresh the page, and now it's +1. Do I have a value that's equal? I can come here and replace num3 with 7. Just put the value 7 here. Control X, yes, press enter, and you got 0. So that's how we compare. Now let's go ahead and use the other comparisons that's supposed to return true and false. If I come here, let me take those away. And I'm just going to come here and say num3 is greater than num2. $num2. Now this is one of those operations, so let me just Control X, save it. Now this is supposed to return true. As you can see, it's returning 1, not true. The word true is not going to be returned. Basically what's going on here is when you do a comparison, using comparison operators between two values, again, the final value could be true or could be false. And if it's true, it's going to return 1. If it's false, it's going to return 0. So just to show you that, if I come here and replace this greater than with less than, let me Control X this, save it. Now if I go back, you will notice that this one is going to be actually gone. Actually, it's not going to show me anything. That basically means it's false if it's not going to return anything. So here we go. These are the comparison operators. Now what do we have after that? We talked about comparison operators. Now we're going to talk about logical operators, and then we're going to talk about bitwise operators. The bitwise operators, we don't use them that much, but for the logical operators, we mainly have a group of them, and I am going to show you them in a sec. So let me just go here and list those operations. First of all, we have the AND operator. We have the OR operator. And we have the XOR operator. And then we have the AND operator, and we have the OR operator, and we have the NOT operator. The NOT operator basically means is going to reverse the results. Now, before I say what do they work, how do they work, let's talk about what are they. Those logical operators, basically, they're used to combine conditional operators. So if you have two expressions, two Boolean expressions, and you put them together, you connect those operations using those logical operators. That's extremely important to understand. I'm going to provide you guys with a page later that summarizes everything that I'm talking about here, so it could be really, really helpful. But what you need to understand here is this AND and this AND, they exactly work the same way. So let me just return true if both values are true, and then this one here again, true if either, true if both x and y are true. Exactly. So we use those operations to connect two Boolean expressions, and you need to understand the relationship between them because there's something called a Boolean table. And just to show you an example here, imagine we got A and we got B. A and B, both of them are any Boolean expressions, like 5 greater than 2. That's for A. And B, basically 10 equal 10. So both of them are Boolean expressions. Now, what we're going to do, we're going to state like 1 as a true and 0 as false. Now, when you come here and type A and B, which is basically equivalent to A and B. So both of them are exactly the same. You should understand that the result is going to be false here. Why? Because the relationship between those two, A and B, using the AND operator, both of them need to be true for the final results to be true. Now, of course, the same thing here. Let's just go ahead and put 0 and 1. That will give me 0 again. Now, if I come here and put 0 and 0, I'm still going to get 0. And finally, if I put 1 and 1, that will give me 1. That's what we mean by the AND operator. I'm going to show you an examples, of course, later, but for now, let's just focus on the idea. Now, again, just have to put in your consideration is Boolean expressions are complicated. You can rarely use a single Boolean expression. Usually, it's multiple Boolean expressions connected using those logical operators. Now, if I replace this one with OR, the word or you put this simple OR, and to get to that point, basically it's shift the key atop of the enter to the right. That's what this operator. Now, this OR operator basically means if both ends are true, or one of them at least is true, is going to give you a true. So since this is true and this is false, so this is going to be true. This is false, this is true, this is going to be true. This is going to be false, the only case of false. So this is another operator. Now, not basically is going to reverse the final result. So if the final result is true, it's going to return it to false. If it's false, it's going to return it to true. Now, the XOR basically will return true if both A and B, if either one of them is true, but not both of them. So what does that mean? Let me just go ahead and show you that. That's another Other programming languages don't have the XOR, but you can actually get the XOR from a combination of those. So let me take this away. If I put here XOR, so what does that mean? Basically means, again, let me just go to the definition. The XOR operation basically is going to return true if either A or B is true, but not both of them. Okay? So what is that telling me? That's telling me A should be true or B should be true, but not both of them. So I'm going to get true here. I'm going to get true here, but I'm going to get false here. And that's the XOR. Now, just to have some examples about that, let me just go back to my page here. And let's see if I can go back here. Let's go down in this area here. Okay, so what are we going to do? Let's say here, I am going to come up with two Boolean expressions. And let me just echo them. $sign. Let's go with num1. Now we'll say is greater than 1. I can come here and say and num2 is less than 100. Let's go and echo a break line here. BR. And put semicolon. So based on what you see here, num1 is greater than 1. Well, I know it's supposed to be equal to 4, and num2 is less than 100. I know num2 is basically 7, I believe. So let's see if I'm going to get true in this case. Control X, yes. Now if I refresh the page, I'll get 1 as true. Now if I go back here and change that relation to be false, remember here, all you have to do is to change one of those conditions to be false. So I'm going to say if num2 is greater than 100, and instead of the word and, I'm going to use this expression here. Control X, save it, press enter. Now you can see that instead of 0, 1, I'll get nothing. And that's because it's false. So that's, again, an operation. Now let me just go ahead and do this. I'm going to go and change this to be XOR. XOR. And let me save it. Now I know the first term is true, the second one is not. So if I refresh the page, I get 1. Now let me go back and change both of them to be true. You will notice that I'll get nothing. X, Y. Now if I refresh the page, and I got nothing now. So those are what we mean by logical operators. As you can see here, I'm using it to create a more complicated Boolean expression. This here is a simple Boolean expression, but when you have multiple Boolean expressions and you want to connect them together, we have those tools that I was talking about, which are the one that's listed here. Okay, so those are the operations. Now, in addition to that, we have a very, very unique operator that we can use in PHP. The first one is the question mark, colon, and then the second one is a double question mark, and we're going to talk about them now. This one, the first one is called the ternary, and the ternary is very simple. What we're going to do, basically, we are going to have an expression, and then the final result of the expression basically will rely on a condition that we have. So what do I mean by that? Let's just go ahead and see that. Let's say I have a variable. I'm going to use the space here. $R equal, and in this area for the R, I'm going to open a parenthesis. And I'm going to come here and say $, what do we have here? Num1, for example. Num1 double equal num2. And then after that, I'm going to put a question mark. And then in this area here, I'm going to put 100. And then I'll put a semicolon. And then I'm going to put, sorry, not a semicolon, colon. And then I'm going to put 1,000. Okay, so what do we mean by that? Well, let's look at this expression by itself. I have a variable called r, and r is supposed to equal a value. Now, what do I do here? Here I have a Boolean expression. I'm checking if num1 equal num2. If num1 equal num2, if this expression is true, then 100 will be assigned to r1. If this condition is false, then 1,000 will be assigned to r1. This also goes back to selection structures, which we're going to cover later, but this is an operation that's available. We're going to talk about it a little bit later with more details. Now we have the double question mark here, which somehow works the same way as the question mark with a single column here. But again, you don't have to worry about this one that much. When we get to that point, we're going to cover it with more details. But for now, just focus on this part. This expression here is to show you how does it work. I'm pretty sure later when we get to the if statements, we're going to get back to this expression to talk about it. But just to give you an idea here, this here is an statement. If this structure here is true, then 100 is going to be assigned to R1. If this structure is false, then the 1,000 is going to be assigned to R1. Now the last group of operators that we're going to talk about is what we call the bitwise operators. And the bitwise operators, I'm not going to spend time here, but just to give you an idea, we have AND, we have OR, we have XOR, which is this sign here. We have NOT, which is this sign here, and we have shift to the left, and we have shift to the right. Now you may ask a question, what are these operations mean? Now remember here, we probably will not get to a point where we're going to have to use them, but this is something you just have to know about it. If you have two values, let's say num1 and num2, okay, and you want to perform any of these operations on them, what's going to happen basically is going to take your number, your value, and convert it to binary and apply those bitwise operators. Now, this is something that you should know, or you should have a background about, that any value, for example, let's imagine num1, for example, equal 8. And then let's imagine num2 equals 6. When I say here, look at this, if I say $num1 and $num2, remember here, this is a single AND operator. It's not double AND. So that's a big difference here. What's going to happen here between those two values? Of course, I can come here and type echo and show this open on the screen. What's going to happen? The computer system is basically going to take the 8 and present it in binary, which is basically 1, 0, 0. And then after that, it's going to take the 6 and present it in binary, which is basically going to be 0, 1, 1, 0. And then it's going to perform the AND operator between those values. So what's going to happen is going to compare the 0 with the 0. Since both of them zeros, then the result is going to be 0. And then it's going to compare this 0 with the 1, so you're going to get 0 again. And then you're going to compare this 0 with this one, and then you get 0 again. And then it's going to compare this 0 with this one, where you get 0 again. So the final result of this operation here basically will be 0. Now if I replace this with OR, it's going to be totally a different story. What's going to happen here, we're going to perform the OR operator between those bits. So 0 and 0 will give me 0 for sure. And then 0 and 1 will give me 1. And then 0 and 1 will give me 1 again. And then 1 and 0 will give me 1. And as a result, this is equivalent to, let's say, 8 plus 14. The results of this operation is going to be 14. Now this again heavily depends and relies on you understanding the binary representation for these values and understanding what is the OR and 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 XOR operations, which we covered here. Those operations that I covered here basically will be used with Boolean expressions. So this is a Boolean expression, this is a Boolean expression. Boolean expression is true or false. But when you use them with variables, it's going to take the variable itself, convert it to a binary, and take this variable and convert it to binary, and apply the same thing, very similar to what you have here, between the bits. That's why it's called bitwise. So basically, as you can see here, this is 0, 0. Now, if I change this one to be the XOR operator, which is this simple here. So we know XOR basically means one of them need to be true, but not both of them. So as a result, 0, 0 will give me 0. 0 and 1 will give me 1, 1 and 0 give me 1, and then 0 and 1 give me 1, and then 1 and 0 give me 1. So basically, XOR or OR are going to give me the same exact value, and so on. Now, shift, on the other hand, is going to work in a different way. So, for example, if I come here and say echo number 1, what's going to happen in this case is going to shift the values to the left. So num1, which is 8, okay, it means you're going to move all the values to the left. Wait a minute, which one of them is to the left and which one of them is the right? Let me make sure. This one shift to the left. So you shift the bits of X, Y steps into left. Yep, that's how it works. But again, I need to see more examples about that. But again, we are not going to use them that much. And if we find ourselves using them, I'm going to go and explain them with more details. But for now, just have a very basic idea about how do they work. Okay, so now that we know about those arithmetic operations, and not only all the operations that we covered so far, let's go ahead and put them in some action. First thing we're going to cover is the conditional operators. Now, if you have any background in programming, then whatever you're going to be seeing now, it's basically a piece of cake. So let me just show you those examples or those conditional operators that we have. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to use this example. If, num1, let's put equal 10, and then let's go ahead and create another variable, num2 equal 20. What I'm going to be doing here, I'm going to check and see if num1 is greater than num2 or less than num2. So what I can do here, I can come here and say if you open expression parentheses, let's put a space here, and I can come easily and say num1 is less than num2. Now, since this is the case, it's true, I'm going to open a parenthesis and I'm going to close it here. So if this condition is true, I'm going to echo, and I'll put a message here, and I will say num2 is, num1 is less than num2. And of course, I can come here and put a break line if I want to, and put semicolon here. And when I'm going to come here, I'm going to put another echo message, and I'll just say the end. Let's put semicolon. So in this if statement, basically, I'm checking to find out and checking to see if num1 is less than num2. And since that's the case, this is going to be printed, and it's going to be followed by this line here. Let me just go ahead and test that. So let me just go ahead. A lot of this is going to be gone, and here it is. num1 is less than num2, the end. Now let's go back and do something here. What if I change the condition here? Let's make it num1 is actually greater than num2. Now, in this case, this is false, and because it's false, this line is not going to be executed, and it's going to jump straight to the end. Now, let me just go ahead and show you that. Control X, Y, save the page. You'll see that I'll just get the end. Now, what's the problem with what I'm showing you here? In first case or second case, I'm only concerned with the results if the condition is true or false. So, for example, in this case, if this is true, then something's going to happen. Otherwise, go normally. In a lot of cases, maybe you want to have an action if something's true, and you want to have a different action if it's false. In previous cases that I showed you, my only action is going to be implemented or is going to be taken, which is to print this message, if this condition is true. Otherwise, it's just going to go with the normal. You will always see the end. So what we can do if we want to have both cases covered, true or false, let me just come here and say num1 is greater than num2. I could come at this point here and type else and open a curly brace and come here and close it. Okay, and what am I doing here in this area? I am going to come here and say echo num1 is less than num2. Less than. Okay, and then let's put a break line here as well. BR. Let's put semicolon. So as you can see here, what's going to happen if this condition is true, then this is going to be executed and this one is going to be ignored. Okay, if this condition is true, this is going to be executed and this is going to be ignored. Now, if this condition is false, this is going to be ignored and this is going to be executed. So the bottom line here, we usually use those selection structures to test something, and depending on the result of the test, which usually is going to be a true or false, you may have to have an action or two actions, depending on what you're trying to do. So if you are only concerned when the condition is true and you don't care if it's false, then you're just going to go with if statement. But if you want to have an action when it's true and you want to have a different action when it's false, then you're going to have to go with an if-else statement. And this here, again, remember here, we're not talking about application. This is just for the purpose of testing. So let me just go ahead and save my work. And let me just go ahead and show you. And you can see here, num1 is less than num2. Let's go ahead and see that. Yes, that's true. Let me just change the numbers here. I'm just going to come here and put this as 100 and 10. And let me save it. Yes. Now if I refresh it, and you can see here now num1 is greater than num2. So that's again what we do here. Now let me just show you an example that we have something called if-else-if. The if-else-if, basically, if you're going to have like a tree of cases to cover. So what I'm going to do here, I'm going to come and say, let's just update this. I'm going to come here and say grade is, let's say, 87. Okay, that's my grade. What I want to do here, I want to check and see if the grade is an A or it's a B or it's a C or it's a D. What we do here, we're going to have to come here at this point and do the following check. First of all, how do you get an A? If the grade was less or equal 100 and at the same time grade was greater or equal 90. That's the case where you get an A. If your grade is less than 100 or greater than 90, then we're going to assume that we don't have any errors here. That's very important to understand because the grade could be assigned to something bigger than 1,000. But we'll just go ahead and do, this is my case now. What I can do here, I'm going to say you got an A. Now when I can come here, I need to come and check if he got a B, because it could be an A, it could be a B. So I'm going to come here and say if the grade was less than 90, not equal, at the same time grade was greater or equal 80. If that's the case, then you got a B. You got a B. Now when I can come here, I will do the same thing here. I will say else if, and I'm going to put another condition now. If grade is less than 80 and grade greater or equal 70. What is that? That's a C. So you got a C. BR and semicolon. I hope I'm not going to miss anything here. Let's go ahead and put an else if statement now. If it's not a C, then it's a D. So we'll put here grade is less than 70 and grade is greater or equal 60. Curly brace, close curly brace, and let's just go ahead and echo. You got a D. Let's go with break line, put semicolon. Now I'm gonna just make it a little bit different. Let's go ahead and plus if. Now, what if, let's say, grade was less than 60 and grade was greater or equal 0. That's an F. You got an F. And let's put a break line, put semicolon here. Now, I'm going to put a last else statement. Now, the reason why I'm putting this last if else statement is, what if you entered a value that's negative or a value that is greater than 1,000? So I'll just come here and say invalid grade. Let's go ahead and put a break. Let's put semicolon. So this is me converting this 78 into one of those grades. Now let me just go ahead and I'm going to have to test it using different values. But let's just start with this 87 now. Control X, save it, press enter. Let's go ahead and refresh this page. You got a B. So that's obviously working. Now let me come here and change that to be a negative value. Control X. Refresh it. Invalid grade. Okay. Let's put a value that is, let's put a 67, for example. Control X, Y, enter. That's supposed to be a D, I believe. And you got a D. So here we go. So this is what we mean by if statement, if else statement, and nested if statement. That's a case of a nested if statement. Now, in addition to that, we have what we call a switch statement. Switch statement works in a different way, of course. Let me just go ahead and show you a case for that. If I go in this area here, after this final echo here, there's no way I can reverse that. Let's just take this out. What's going on here? Let's go ahead and do that. Echo the end. Break line, semicolon. Okay, here we go. This is the area I'm going to do the switch. So let's go ahead and create num. And let's put num as, you know what, let's just create a color. And color, let's put a red. So I have a color that is red. Now, in this area, what I can do, I can check. Imagine color is something you read from the key from a form. Like the user decided to choose a T-shirt number, a T-shirt color, which is red, and I'm gonna check and see what color did the user chose. So here's what we can do. I could come here and type the keyword switch, and I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna put $color. You open a parenthesis and then you go all the way to the bottom and you close it. So this is my switch block of code. Now, what we're going to do for the switch is simply we'll have cases. And for each case, we're going to take an action depending on the matching case. So here, I'm just going to show you two cases for simplicity. Case red, and you put a colon. Now, if the color that you passed was red, I'm going to come here and type echo, it's red. Now let's go with a break line here, put a semicolon. And most importantly, you have to follow this with what we call a break statement. Break basically means you find a match and you're done. Now, what if it wasn't red? For example, it was green. Well, if it's a green, we're going to have a case for green, as you can see here. Echo, it's green. Let's go break line as well, and then put semicolon. Let's imagine those are the t-shirts that I'm selling here. They're green and yellow. So break, and I'm done. Now, what we can do here, we can have what we call a default case. So default. And in this default case, we're just going to have to echo, we'll say, we don't have that choice of color. Let's go a break line. Now, one of the things you have to understand here is with that default case, you don't really need to put a break here because you got to the end of it. So what's going to happen here? Basically, color is going to be assigned to red, and then you're going to have this expression here to check the color. And you have case red, case green, and case default. You have to remember here, I think it's a case sensitive, so you have to pay attention to that. What's going to happen, basically, you're going to check and see if there's a match. Red here will match the red, so this is going to be executed, and everything else was going to be ignored. Now, if this one is green, for example, it's going to be checked and skipped because no match. Oh, here we go. This is a match, so it's going to execute this one, and it's going to break. Now, if you have a color here, for example, is yellow, no match, no match, so it's going to go to the default choice and show you that result. And that's basically what we mean by the switch statement. What I'm going to do here, I am just going to show you, I just want to let you know that you have to pay attention because it is a case sensitive. So you have to make sure that you pay attention to that part. So let me just save this work. And since it's red, I'm going to be seeing red printed on the screen. So it's red. Now let me just go ahead and change this one to green. So let me Control X. I'm saving it. Now let me go back and now it's green. Now finally, let me just put a color that it's not in the list of colors. For example, blue. So let me Control X. Now if I go back here, refresh this page, and we don't have that choice of color. Now just imagine you're selling, you have t-shirts business, and you had the color blue, but you just ran out of that color. So what's going to happen basically here? You need to check and see your inventory and see if you actually have that color. If you don't have that color, you're just going to have to tell the users that we are out of that color and we're running out of it. Okay, so this is basically what we mean by those selection or making decisions and conditions. Now the only part left is for us to learn how do we make loops, which I do have a meeting in 10 minutes, so I'm going to go to that meeting and come back to get this done. Okay, so the last part we're going to talk about in this long video is looping. Now looping basically means making your script, your PHP script, repeating something for a certain number of times. You may ask the question now, what is the point of making the program to repeat something for a certain number of times? Well, sometimes for calculation, the calculation require you to go through a looping process, or sometimes you just need to get a specific operation implemented for a number of times. So again, I'm pretty sure that at a certain point you'll find yourself doing looping somehow. For example, you could be sending data to a destination, and then you want to check and see if whatever you're sending got to the destination. So you wait for a response, and if you get a response that whatever you send has been reached to the destination, then you stop. Otherwise, you're going to keep sending, keep sending until it gets to the destination. So that's just an example of looping. In PHP, we have mainly four different styles of looping. We have while loop, do while loop, and for each. Now, for each, I'm going to put it on the side. We're not going to talk about it today because it's connected to arrays, and we don't know what is an array. So we'll put that on the side. Looping, again, as I said, we have three main different loops, and I already created them here in this PHP file. The first one here at the top that I'm going to highlight, this is what we call a for loop. A while loop. Now, in the while loop, basically, I do have a variable. We're going to call it counter. The variable name is CT. And then I have my while statement here. And then I have the open and close curly braces. And then I do have a condition here, or a Boolean expression. And I'm saying here, as long as the CT variable is less or equal to 10, I want you to execute whatever you have between those two blocks, curly braces. So what's going to happen? CT equal 1. 1 is less than 10, so that's true. So since this condition is true, I'm going to show while loop and the value of CT at this point. And then after that, this is very important that you need to update the value of CT, which I'm increasing it by 1. So previously it was 1, now it's going to be 2. And you're going to come back here and you compare CT, which is 2 now with 10, still true. So it's going to execute this one and it's going to update it by 1. So now it's 3. And you're going to keep going until you get to the point where CT is going to equal 11. And whenever it's 11, this condition is going to be false. And whenever this condition is false, you're going to skip the body of the loop and you're going to continue with the normal execution. This here is what we call a while loop. Now, while loop is what we call a pretest condition. Pretest condition basically means you test and then you execute. So you can see here we're testing first and then we're executing. That's what we call a pretest. Now let's go and talk about the do while, and then I'm going to talk about mainly what's the difference between three of them. The do while in somehow works very similar to the while loop. So we still have our counter variable. We're going to assign it to 1 here. And then we have the do statement here with the curly brace, and then you close it here. And after the closing curly brace, you put the while and you put a statement here, the Boolean expression. And don't forget the semicolon here at the end. So what we're saying here is I'm going to execute whatever I have inside the block of the do while. And then after that, I'm going to test the condition. And if it's true, I'm going to go back and continue. And I'm going to go back and continue until this condition becomes false. Before I show you what do we have inside the body, this is what we call a post test. Post test basically means you execute first and then you test. Now this is a pretest. You test first and then you execute. Here you execute first and then you test. So that's why it's called a post test loop technique. Just like here, we have a counter. And we're testing the counter here, and then we have to increase the counter here. I'm just showing you an example here that the testing, the updating for the counter doesn't necessarily have to be just plus plus. It could be plus equals something, like I'm increasing it by 2 here in this case. Now, of course, this is also just going to show you this message, and then it's going to keep going. Now, I do have a very special case here that I'm just going to mention. In this do while loop, I decided whenever the counter value equal 5, I want to break. What does that mean? That basically means when you get to this point in the body of the do while loop, and when the value of the counter actually equal 5, you basically going to execute this statement here, which is called break. Break basically means leave the while loop. Now you may ask the question, why are you leaving at 5? Well, for no reason at this point. I'm leaving at 5. But in general, sometimes while you're doing a looping process, at a certain value, you want to stop the whole process. Okay, and in this case here, I'm going from 1 all the way to 10, but if it happened that the value of counter reached to a value of 5, then just stop the whole thing and leave. Remember here, I'm increasing it by 2. So 1, I'm going to see this, and this is going to be increased by 2, so it's going to be 3. This condition is false, and this condition here is true, so now counter equals 3. We're going to come back here. You're going to show the 3. And then you're going to increase it by 2. Now it's equal 5. And when you get to equal 5, you will see, oh, this condition is true that at this point. So you're going to be breaking and you're going to leave the do while loop. Now, for the while loop and the do while loop, what you need to understand here is we use them when we are not certain about how many times the program is going to be executing. Like how many times those two lines are supposed to be executed. In this case, I know it's going to be executed for 10 times. But in general, we're going to see that CT here is not going to be updated by plus plus. It could be a data that's going to be sent from the server or from someone else. Oh, it's an input from a user. So what we mean by the while loop here, we're going to keep going until the condition here becomes false. And usually, again, with the while loop or the do while loop, we use those cases or those techniques when we are not 100% sure about how many times exactly it's supposed to be executed. Now, when you know how many times exactly you need to be repeating the process, you go with a for loop. And here's my for loop. As you can see here, I got for, and I got parentheses. And inside the parentheses, it's very important that you're going to have 3 sections. This is the section for creating the counter and you initialize it to value. This is your condition, Boolean expression, where you're going to do the comparison. And this is the place where you update your counter. Here, you can see I was increasing it by 2. Here, I'm increasing it by 3. Now, I don't want you to look at this statement here. Let's just focus on this. Basically, you're going to be executing this line. You're going to keep going until the value C is going to become 11, and that's where you're going to leave. Now, let's talk about this part here. I'm having a very, very similar case to the case that I have here. Was basically I'm comparing the C variable to the value 7. And then if there is a match, that basically means whenever we get to the value of C equals 7, we're going to see this continue process. Continue process basically means skip an iteration. Skip an iteration basically means after this continue is executed, you leave everything underneath it until you get to the end of the loop. And in this case, we just have this line here. So whenever C equals 7, you are going to skip the printing part of C equals 7, and you're going to jump here to this end, to this point, and then you're going to continue with the looping normally. So break will leave the loop with the looping process. Continue will just skip one loop, one iteration. Now, with that being said, let me just save it. Okay, it's not going to let me save it. I hope it's saved. So let me just go ahead and refresh the page, of course. Okay, I think it was saved. So let me just go ahead and open the page. So this is my page here. Remember here, if I open the page, it's going to show me my login system. I added a file inside that login system. I called it testing.php. And here it is. So if you can see here, this is my while loop. It's going from 1 to 10. This is my do while loop. I said whenever you get to the counter to equal 5, break, leave the loop. And for the for loop, you can see here I got 1, I got 4, and then 7 where I skipped an iteration or a loop, and then I continued with 10, and this is how it works. So these are the loops. This is how it works. I don't want to keep going because this video is going to be very, very long. So let me just go ahead and move to that file, var www html. And then if I go list them, here it is. So cat testing, and here's my file, and this is the looping part. So this will be the end of this lecture and this video. If you guys have any questions, don't forget to send me emails, and have a good day.